Welcome to the storage file bloat problem and what you can do about it. A joint Neuxpower and Dragon Slayer Consulting webinar. File bloat problem. What is file bloat? Well, it's also known as insidious file size creep, and I'm sure you've all seen it. Files keep getting bigger on an ongoing basis. And this is a direct result of gratuitously fatter files. And that comes because the software is inefficient. Applications like Office create excessive file resolution, pointless data baggage, redundant data, and superfluous junk data within the files. So the files are bigger than they need to be, in fact, a lot bigger than they need to be. It's because the software is inefficient. There are serious storage consequences that are a direct result of this inefficient software. First, you're going to consume storage a heck of a lot faster. And if you're consuming it faster, you got to buy more of it. So if you have more storage, that results in more storage systems, more storage management, more storage networks, more server ports, more server management, more switch ports, more switches, more switch management, more cables, more cable management. We all love cable management. More power, more cooling, more racks, more floor space, and a lot more manually intensive administrative tasks. At the end of the day, it's a lot more capital expenditure and operating expenditures. But it doesn't stop there. Because if you're consuming more primary storage for your data, for these fat files, you're going to consume even more secondary storage. You're going to end up with longer backups, longer replications, or longer snapshots. So much longer that you may even miss backup windows. And recovery? They're much longer too, because now you're recovering data you don't care about, don't want, don't need. But when you have fat files, you're going to be recovering it. More secondary storage ultimately means to you a lot more management and a lot more manually intensive tasks. File bloat wastes your time and wastes your money. And remember, unlike money, time is a non-renewable resource. It's non-recoverable. Once it's spent, it's gone forever. And when you add to file bloat the accelerating file growth, you're going to have a migraine headache. IDC and Forrester and Tenacia Group all have facts on how fast this is growing. Forrester research says that there's over 100 million Microsoft Office documents created every day, and every single one of them have file bloat. IDC says over 161 exabytes of digital information was created last year alone, and that represents 3 million times the information in all the books ever written. And Tenacia Group says more than half of all new corporate data growth is unstructured data such as Microsoft Office documents. Again, bloated files. And that's set to grow at nearly 100% per year. That's a migraine headache. Well, what about the common workarounds? What about deduplication? That should solve it, right? Or compression? Not exactly. They can make matters worse. I mean, they were designed for the secondary storage consumption problem, and they do work okay there. But on primary storage and on bloated files, not so much. Dedupe is designed to get rid of fat copies. In other words, I have duplications, copies of my primary files and my data in those files, then I'm going to get rid of those copies. Okay? But you still have to reconstitute whatever you're deduping. So when you start with a file or a block of data or a blocklet of data and you dedupe it, when you read it, you have to reconstitute it. So you're going to take time deduping it and you're going to take time reading it. Remember, time is a non-renewable resource. So that's going to add to response times because you're adding latency. So from a user perspective, dedupe for primary data has severe limitations. One, you're not going to get the reductions you expect. It's designed, as I said, for secondary data where you have lots of duplication. But in primary data, you don't have that kind of duplication. A lot of primary data, a lot of file data, is compressed. And when it's compressed, you can't dedupe it. Why? Because compression moves your blocks around. So at a file level, you can to a point. But at a block level, it's harder to find duplications. And you're not going to have that many duplicate files. And as I said, reading and writing, it's going to add latency. You know that phone system? It's going to light up like a Christmas tree when the users decide, hey, my performance is just grinding to a halt. It's getting much slower. Remember, file bloat with deduplication still remains. You're just hiding it in the secondary storage. Compression? It's another one of those tools that kind of hides the fat, but doesn't eliminate it. It too has to be reconstituted after you compress it to read it. Therefore, you're again adding latency at both the write side and the read side. Compression in primary data also has serious reduction limits. Most files are already compressed. Since Microsoft Office 2007, they compress their documents and their spreadsheets and their presentations. So they're already in a compressed format. It's hard to compress a compressed file. JPEGs are already compressed. So you don't really reduce much when you're compressing compressed files. And as I said, it adds latency again. So you're going to reduce your response time in IOPS. At the end of the day, file bloat still remains. There has to be a better way. Now to show you that better way, Mike Power, CEO and President of Neuxpower.
Okay, thanks Mark for that great introduction to storage growth and the two existing solutions for data reduction. I'd like to talk today about a third approach called file optimization, which allows you to eliminate fat from the files on your network, cutting file bloat at the source. It is neither dedupe nor is it compression. It's a completely new approach. Information Week describes our technology as wringing files out, shaking unneeded bytes out of graphics and included objects to radically reduce their size without affecting their appearance. The key to Neuxpower file optimization software is that it's lossy. This may sound a little dangerous, but the data that we're removing is gratuitous. It's unnecessary baggage that nobody actually needs. And we do this taking great pains to make sure we don't compromise the visual integrity of your files. By that, I mean that the optimized files should look and feel identical to the originals in every way. They'll just be a lot smaller. Lossy technology is the only way to reduce file bloat, and because we're tackling the problem at the source, those reductions will be passed on and will enhance the effects of both dedupe and compression. Let me give you an example of the kind of fat Neuxpower is able to eliminate. Modern digital cameras these days create huge JPEGs, and when people paste these into documents, they tend to be a lot larger than they need to be, and then consequently then so are the documents. Not a huge problem in isolation, but when you multiply that by tens of images per document, hundreds of documents per user, and maybe thousands of users on a network, it can add up to be a pretty huge problem. Neuxpower will find every single one of those images and make sure they're exactly the size they need to be and no bigger. And the net result of that is a huge reduction in the storage consumed by the documents. An added bonus is that the files remain in their original format, which means you don't need to decompress them. You don't need any special software to view or edit them. Optimized files are the original files, just without the junk. Neuxpower currently optimizes PowerPoint, Word, Excel and JPEG files. And we picked those in particular because they are the biggest contributors to storage consumption. They tend to be the most bloated files, and they are certainly the most prolific. So what kind of reductions can you expect on these file types? Well, in 2007, the Coalition Navies independently tested Neuxpower and recorded average file size reductions of 68% for Word, 76% for Excel, and an amazing 84% for PowerPoint. Now, these savings will translate typically into 30 to 40% overall storage reduction for most organizations. In conclusion, file bloat consumes a lot of storage, and more storage means increased infrastructure, management, power, cooling, and a lot more cost. Deduplication and compression do not fix file bloat, and Neuxpower does.